Hi, Andrew from Kensington Wine Market here to give you your single bottle sampling or tasting, drample tasting, if you will, of our new Berry Brothers in Red Blended Malt 1999 Cask number 4. This is an interesting whiskey. We don't do a lot of non-single malts for single casks for a lot of good reasons. There's just not a lot of opportunities to do single cask blended malts or blends. Single cask blends being an especially rare thing to find. But our friends at Berry Brothers in Red offered this up to us. You may have seen a similar bottling to this not too long ago. We did have cask number 1. So from the same parcel of liquid as this, a different cask about 2 years ago. And it was good. We really liked it. We think this one is even better, which is why we put our logo on it, our little round logo, which we created for situations like this where our wide landscape one wasn't appropriate. I'm going to put a little liquid in my glass, let it breathe and open up for a moment while we're getting set here. So I'll tell you a little bit about Berry Brothers in Red. Family-owned business, and not just a family-owned business, but a nearly 340-year-old family-owned business, if my math is correct. Established in 1696, or is that an 8? It might be an 8. Regardless, they started in the 1600s and they're still in business, which is pretty incredible. They're located at number 3 St. James Street in London, which is a stone's throw from St. James Palace. They were an Italian grocer when they first got started. And one of the things Italian grocers did was sell coffee. Over time, they evolved into a business that sold wine and whiskey. They are one of the oldest independent bottlers in Scotland. They claim to be the oldest, which is possibly a contentious claim. I know some other firms may dispute that, but it does raise the question, who really is the oldest independent bottler? Something we should probably look into at some point in time. But certainly Berry Brothers has been at it for a very long time. They're famous for launching the Cutty Sark blend, which is now owned by the Edrington Group, which is going to tie into this later. For a time, they were, almost 30 years, they were the exclusive retailer and exporter of the Glenrothes brand. The curious little side note there is they never owned the Glenrothes distillery. They just owned the right to sell the whiskey and export it. So the Edrington Group kept ownership of Glenrothes, owned the distillery, owned the liquid, but Berry Brothers would do the official bottlings, would market them around the world, and had the rights to do that. And that relationship came to an end almost a decade ago now, maybe even a decade ago now. And the Edrington Group since also purchased the Cutty Sark blend. Now, because of that relationship with the Edrington Group, it's not all that surprising that we see some of this liquid coming from them. The origins of this liquid, like how it came into being, there's a couple of different explanations. One of which, the one I favor, relates back to the famous Grouse brand, which was owned by the Edrington Group. In the late 2000s and possibly into the 2010s, Edrington was kind of toying with the idea of releasing 25, 30, and 40-year-old blended malts. And I think what they did is they married a lot of stock ahead of time, planning for this. The project, I think, got rolled out, but kind of got scaled back and canceled pretty quickly because customers were not really interested in blended malts. They wanted single malts. Now, the shame about that here is if they'd only tried something like this, they might have been happy with it. But the 2000s and 2010s were really the boom times for single malt whiskey. And it was the first time in the history of Scotch whiskey that it was single malt really leading the charge on that boom. And the B word became kind of toxic, whether it's for a proper blend, which is a marriage of single malts and grains, or a blended malt, which is a marriage of just single malts with no grain whiskey in it. We saw it ourselves. Blended whiskey just was not sexy in the late 2000s and early 2010s, with the exception of Compass Box, which is a story for another day and we won't dig into here. So I believe that a lot of this liquid that we've seen bottled as blended malt stock, and it's often sherried and often has a Macallan-esque profile, is from these famous Grouse blended malt project that they were going to do at one point in time. It could have been for some others as well, but that seems to be the most likely explanation. A lot of it is very sherried, in some cases much more sherried than this, and it's very reminiscent of Macallan single malt. Sometimes more Glenrothes, because Edrington Group owns Glenrothes as well as Macallan and Highland Park. At one time, they owned Glenturret until actually not too long ago. They also used to own Glengoyne and Tamdhu. So it's really interesting when you look, especially Tamdhu and Macallan. Flavor profile-wise, they can be quite similar, especially when they're heavily sherried, because they were sourcing their sherry casks from the same place. Anyway, that's one explanation for this. The other is that this is stock that they're just simply trying to get rid of. The whiskey boom got crazy. Prices got out of hand. I don't think Macallan is selling anywhere near the amount of 18-year-old or even 12-year-old that they could, given the scale of their production. So they're looking for an outlet for some of this liquid. And that's why you also see mystery Speyside and mystery Orkney malts cropping up, especially from companies like Signatory, where they can't tell you where it's from, but you're pretty confident you know where it comes from. And so there could be something similar going on here, blending some of these malts together so they can trade them off, get a little money. But by blending them off or blending them together, you can no longer refer to those distilleries. Certainly Berry Brothers can't confirm to us that this is the origin of those malts. We just don't know. Let's give this a nose, see what we think. So this is from, as I mentioned, cask number 4 of Blended Malt from 1999, bottled in 2024 at 48%. We believe 25 years of age, 24, 25 years, but we're splitting hairs there. Does that really matter? Does it make it more attractive somehow? Ultimately, what this is it's old school style whiskey at a great price. On the nose, it's nice and chocolatey, but it's really fruity too. Those tropical tones are bursting out. Some nice citrus fruits as well. A little bit of soft leather and tobacco. Really chocolatey. There are elements of it that remind me a little bit of Macallan on the nose. Those nice candied fruits, that nice thick oily body. But then there's also these soft, gentle peat tones, these creamy honey notes that are more reminiscent of Highland Park. Bit of plum wine in there, really, really clean smoke. Bit of pecan pie, some whipped topping. There's a lot of different elements. I mean, this is a product that was probably a marriage of many, many casks that was then put back into a hogshead to be further matured or married, probably initially for not very long, and then spent a much longer period of time in there. And I think that's what's really driven these nice oxidative tropical fruit notes. Let's go ahead and give it a sip. Oh, on the palate, it's so chocolatey. The sherry tones are really soft, really delicate. They're allowing those tropical fruits to come through, which really start to seep into the palate when you give it a little bit of time. But what really drives this for me, and we talk about this in tastings all the time, is these senses of nostalgia that flavors and aromas can give you. And this makes me think back to my late 20s and early 30s when I was playing hockey for the second time. I stopped in university, but got back into it in my young adulthood. And I'd often be playing late at night. And, at the end of the game, you're tired, you're hungry, you're thirsty. And I'd stop on the way home and I'd get a 1-liter jug of chocolate milk. And I would basically chug that thing. And it would coat my mouth with, fat, sugar, salt, and chocolate. And this to me makes me think about that. This whiskey's got a lovely coating body to it. It's really chocolatey. There's a nice sweetness to it there too. And like that chocolate milk, it's chuggable. Like this is really, really drinkable, satisfying whiskey. Let's give it another taste. On that second sip, some nice spice notes come in. You can see that nice little clean smoke note. There's some nice salty tones too, a little bit of salted caramel in there as well. Grilled pineapple, ripe mango and papaya, even a little bit of kiwi in there too. It's syrupy, just really, really easy drinking. The other thing that I think is so special about this, and that smoke is now really building up, it's clean, but it's becoming bigger and bigger. This reminds me of the way whiskeys were 20 years ago. And I talk about this a lot often in my tasting notes. But a lot of the sherry cask whiskeys we see today, they have this very modern profile. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's often quite a nice profile and people really like it. But I find it's sometimes a little bit more astringent, a little bit more spicy, a little bit more earthy. Old school style sherry cask whiskeys, which, Gordon MacPhail certainly must be the king of these days, have a much softer profile to them. They can be dark and rich, but still allow the spirit character to come through, still allow those fruits to come through. And that's what's really happening here. The other thing that I think is worth noting about this, a lot of these mystery blended malts and blends that we see are often very Macallan forward, or at least they have that Macallan style. Whether it's Macallan or Tamdhu, sherried Glenrothes, whatever happens to be in there, it's that Speyside style, that heavily sherried Speyside style that dominates. What's cool about this one is that I think it's the Orkney style, that Highland Park style, that's really leading the charge. I'm going to have one final little sip here. The last thing I'm going to say about this, and man, again, just love that palate and the finish, is this is great value. I mean, we're in an interesting point right now where I think there's a lot of overpriced products out there. It's hard to get value for age, even in this current environment, especially when you're over 20 years of age. But this is great value. $2.75 a bottle, came in even less than that last batch we had, which was younger. And this was bottled entirely for us, whole cask. 173 total bottles. We've got less than 50 left. And that's just in a couple of months' time. And why is that? It's because it's great value. It's great liquid at a great price. If you don't care about the fact that it's a blended malt and not a single malt, and why should you? At the end of the day, it's about the liquid. Unless you're looking to hoard this and then flip it for a profit at some point in the future, which, spoiler alert, you're probably not going to get much for it. This is great value. Buy a bottle, drink it, don't feel guilty about it. This is 25-year-old whiskey that you can enjoy anytime until it runs out. So if you've tasted along with me, I hope you've enjoyed our Berries Blended Malt 1999 KWM Cask number 4, available exclusively from Kensington Wine Market. Big thank you to our friends at Berry Brothers for offering us this little gem. We love it when they send us something brilliant our way, and they've done it many times. I hope you're enjoying it, and thanks for tasting along. Slange.